Hi everyone, welcome to Festival Focus, a new Sporting Life racing podcast production. We're going to be talking about punting at the Cheltenham Festival every week in the lead up to Cheltenham from now. So we've got 5 episodes to have a go at. We're going to be focusing on one of the championship races each week. This week it's the Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup, and it's going to be the same panel every single week. So you're going to get to know David Massey, Martin Dixon, Matt Brocklebank and myself, Ben Linfoot, very well over the next month or so as we talk all things Cheltenham. Welcome along, gents.
Hello.
How are we doing?
Hi,
Nice to see you, Dave.
Oh, that's nice to be seen, Ben. Nice to be seen.
When you went viral on TikTok, I think it was last year's Cheltenham Festival, wasn't it? Everyone's been saying you've got to get Dave Massey on more podcasts.
Even my daughter rang me up and she said, "What are you doing on TikTok, Dad?" Because it even got to Manchester Metropolitan University and all this. She said, "This is your dad, isn't it?" I was like, "Yeah, look how many views it's had." And my daughter's ringing me up going, "You're a TikTok star." I didn't know. I had no idea what that meant. Not a clue.
The most unlikely TikTok star, I think going.
Were you putting your keys in the ground or something, Dave? Was that what it went? Was that what it was? It was testing the going on Gold Cup Day.
Yeah, I got a big stick, a sharp pointy stick, and I was sticking.
Beautiful.
It was. I can't remember. When I came up through the filming last year, wasn't it? And young Mr. Andy caught me sort of asking questions. So, but yeah, it was. Yeah, it was just bizarre. People sort of.
I'll have to catch up on. I'll have to catch up on this. I'm a bit late to this party, but.
I think about 3.5 million views or something, didn't it, Dave?
Did it?
Oh, silly. It
was more than that. It was more than that. Anyway, let's crack on. And the first race we're going to talk about in this podcast series is the Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup on Friday, March the 14th at 4 o'clock. And of course, it's all about Galopin Des Champs, Martin, who was brilliant again in the Irish Gold Cup at the DRF at the weekend. He's 2-5 favourite now for the Gold Cup, and that's probably reflective of not just his dominance but also the opposition, perhaps.
Yeah, we're going right in with a bang, aren't we, at the start of our festival focus, going straight in for the Gold Cup at the top of the show. So it's the right place to start, and it gets everyone looking forward to what will be a brilliant 4 days. I mean, he's the headline act, he's the star of the show through the whole week, isn't he? And I think he's emerged from what he's done consistently now over the last 3 seasons. He is one of those horses that you can genuinely view as a superstar of National Hunt racing, and we all expect that he'll win the Gold Cup again. Well, I certainly expect him to win the Gold Cup again. I don't want him to speak for everyone else, but the betting market's gone that way. It's understandable. If anything, it looks like it could be a weaker field than what he's beaten in the past in some respects, and I certainly think it'll be a lesser field numerically than what he's had to beat in the past, because we've only got 15 entries in the race. You go through recent years, we've had 11 runners, 13, 11, 12, 12, 16, and the last 9-runner race was when the single figure field was Don Cossack in 2016. We could be heading for that again. I don't think there'll be, like I said, there's only 15 entries. You go through those 15, they're not all likely to go there. There's certainly 2 or 3 with Ryanair likely targets, and there's another couple that you just wonder whether they will actually end up in a Gold Cup because their current form wouldn't be good enough to justify their place in a field. So it could conceivably be 7, 8, 9 runners this year. He's going to go there. He goes there in terrific form on the back of, a performance at Leopardstown, maybe not his very best through his whole career, but he looked like he's still got as much ability as he's ever had.
Absolutely, and Dave, if we're talking about a sort of 7 to 12 runner field in a Gold Cup, that's just perfect for Galopin Des Champs. I mean, we've seen him win a Gold Cup coming from behind in his first go, and then last year he's obviously ridden more prominently, but I don't think it really matters where you put him, does it?
Exactly that. It doesn't matter. The smaller the field, the fewer horses you've got to beat, the easier it'll be for him to be positioned. And I think they'll ride him prominently this year. There's no reason why you wouldn't. And if you're up the front, there's far less chance of accidents happening. We've seen that in Gold Cup before. If you're back in the field and in the backwash, there's more chance of something happening. So why would you even take that risk? You're on the best. Paul Hannah's going to be on the best horse in the race that, as you say, can be positioned anywhere. Why would you just not want to keep it simple? I think the smaller the field, the more he looks an absolute good thing, to be perfectly honest.
Matt, it's your job to pick holes in these sorts of favourites, but this is a difficult task, isn't it? And we were looking back in December, weren't we, at potential scenarios that might be. I mean, we're thinking maybe a heavy ground Gold Cup, and Corbett's Cross could come to it each way at 33-1, and suddenly he's 12-1 fourth favourite. So that's what we're dealing with.
He could end up as third favourite, couldn't he? Yeah, I think, as the guys have said, it's probably a case of what can beat him rather than who can beat him. As a punter, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't run, kind of sort of gamify these shocks, because they do happen. They happen all the time, and they happen at Cheltenham, and they happen in Gold Cups. Short price favourites do get beat, including this horse, obviously, in the Turners back in the day. I was looking back. I looked through. Well, I watched every time he's jumped round Cheltenham. So he's jumped 60 fences at Cheltenham, the Gold Cup twice, and obviously the Turners. And I actually count one mistake, and it wasn't when he came down. He cleared that perfectly. I think it was Mark Johnson. It was the commentator basically said he's over safely. Oh no, he isn't. He jumped it absolutely fine and just sort of slipped on landing, doesn't it? That was pretty epic and a memorable moment in his career. But his jumping's improved and improved as it's gone on, and I think he was better than ever again at Leopardstown. He jumps beautifully. You have to look at it. So what is it, like 1 to 2? So you run the race 100 times. My math's going to fail here, Dave, but he could lose 25, 30 times out of 100. What happens in those scenarios? You've got to factor in, no matter how tiny the percentage, there is a chance that, Willie's horse is a bit under the weather, or, the saddle slips and stuff like that. They're all absolutely minuscule chances of that happening, but I suppose the three slightly more obvious reasons why he might lose are that, one, that he doesn't complete, where I've said that his jumping and the smaller field, you would like to think that he's going to get a fairly safe passage, and he is probably going to jump pretty well around there. The other one is atrocious ground that you touched on. Now, he has proven on heavy ground he handles it perfectly well, but I would argue that not many top-class superstar horses really love getting down and dirty and jumping out of horrible heavy ground. And if it turned into an absolute slugfest, then maybe a horse like Corbett's Cross would come into it. And the opposite of that is that if it came up relatively lively ground, which we have seen in the Gold Cup over the years a few times. I remember Sizing John, he put his class to good measure in a drying ground Gold Cup where he sat handy and quickened. And is there something in that field that could potentially raise their game to match a horse like Galopin Des Champs in that scenario? And I suppose Banbridge is the obvious one that might be able to do that and use that 2-mile pace against a horse like Galopin Des Champs. But I think the stars are going to have to align for something else if he is to lose the Gold Cup.
Well, let's talk about Banbridge. That's a nice little segue, because he won the King George at Kempton, Martin, and he is that sort of horse that is unproven over 3¼ miles, but we've seen them before, the likes of Kicking King, Sizing John, that they can use the class and step up and beat the stayers, and suddenly now he looks probably the most potent rival to Galopin Des Champs.
I think he does on the form book of this season, definitely. I mean, the King George was a good performance. It proved that he's a strong enough stayer at 3 miles on a flat track. Obviously, the Gold Cup will be a different test. I think, generally speaking, the angle into the Gold Cup, we all obviously believe Galopin Des Champs is going to take a hell of a lot of stopping. Maybe the angle in is to find that each way bet at this moment in time. If the race does cut up, it could even be 7 or 8 runners, couldn't it, potentially, if 1 or 2 have a problem in the interim. So you are looking for that little bit of an each way angle, I suppose. My worry with Banbridge from that perspective would be that he does seem very ground dependent, and we're a long way out, 5 weeks out from the Gold Cup. If it did end up being very soft ground, he ran no race at all last year in the Ryanair when he was well fancied, because the ground went too soft for him. It was perfect conditions at Kempton, but this far out, I think you would be taking a risk sort of backing him each way, really, because, as I say, go back to last year's festival, that's all as far you need to go back to see that he massively underperformed simply because the ground went against him.
He's not the second favourite, Dave Massey. Fact to file is, now I'll take you back to November the 24th when he won the John Durkin at Punchestown. Obviously, Galopin Des Champs behind that day. It was his first run of the season. It was over 2 mile. 3 and a bit furlongs, he had excuses. But have you been a little bit disappointed by how Factorfile has come out of that race and how he's performed since?
I think given what we saw through the 23-24 season, I think we all expected him to sort of raise his form by another £10, and that's this season, and that's probably not happened. And it was interesting to hear the paddock reports coming back on Sunday regarding how he looks. The message I got was he won't beat Galopin Des Champs today in terms of how he looks. So whether there's just, I don't know, whether there's just been some sort of very small hold up with him, whether it's been a bit more difficult to train this year, whether he's just been sort of brought along with the day in mind and he'll be absolutely cherry right there, but he's just not quite been the same horse, I don't think, this year. That's not to, you can't knock what he's done, for goodness sake. I mean, he's still finished second and third to Galopin, and he got nearer to Galopin Des Champs at the weekend than he did, at Christmas. So it's hard to sort of crab what he's done, and yet at the same time you feel that, we were all really excited, I think, after March last year. Oh, there could be 2, 3, 4, 5, as many as 5 real good Gold Cup contenders next year, and here we are, and we're sort of saying, well, Galopin's now looking like a shoe-in again. It's just not quite panned out, I don't think, the way that we thought it would. I think there's still time for Factorfile yet. I mean, it's only maybe on the day, maybe he will look absolutely spot on and go back to his very best form and improve on it. I think he's got
the biggest worry would be whether he's going to run, won't it?
Well, that's it.
I mean, yeah, right. The Ryanair is a distinct possibility.
The Ryanair, about a 6-4 chance or something like that. I don't know. He's a short price for the Ryanair, isn't he? I do know.
Yeah, he's about that. No one to no bet, and obviously we don't know for certain, but the vibes are very much pointing Ryanair now, aren't they? On the back of that run, where not only was he well beaten again, but he was kind of finishing relatively weakly, and passed by Grange Clare West in the end. So.
He's one of them on my list. He's got a big cross. You probably can't see it.
Yeah,
says Ryanair. I think that's where he'll end up going, to be honest.
Well, with that in mind, J. Pibbott Manus, then his Gold Cup runner could well be Corbett Cross, couldn't it? And obviously, we remember what he did at Cheltenham last year in the National Hunt Chase. That was in heavy ground over 3 miles, 6 furlongs. He's really going to need a wet spring, isn't he, Corbett's Cross, to come into the reckoning?
Isn't that more likely, given the British climate these days, than a drying, sunny, gorgeous week at Cheltenham? I mean, it just is, isn't it? We've had a few, obviously, where it's fallen on like the Wednesday or the Thursday, but last year was soft as well, wasn't it? But it wasn't that kind of like, I don't know, it wasn't like driving rain, heavy ground. If we did get a really heavy ground Gold Cup, I do think he could become a player in the race. Obviously, there's still a chance that we might see Corbett's Cross between now, as we record, at the start of sort of February to the middle of March. I think they're still weighing up whether to give him that prep run, which could come in the Red Mills Chase next week. So, again, factoring in Emmett Mullins, the way that he works back from A Day. What would you really want to see from Corbett's Cross over, 2.5 miles at Gowran Park? I think it would do. I think I'd like to see him run there, to be perfectly honest, having seen him obviously run relatively laboured in the Gold Cup, probably found the ground a little bit lively, and obviously the tempo was quick from Ile Francais. I'd like to see him livened up, sharpened up a little bit over 2.5 miles on soft ground, which you do usually get on that Red Mills day. But would you really see a performance from him in his trial that would see his price shortened to a single-figure price? I'm not convinced by that argument either.
I think the likes of Corbett's Cross and Banbridge are horses you cannot back anti-post. But on the day, if they get their conditions, you'd almost sort of take, would you take 14 on Corbett's Cross now knowing that it's got to be a swamp? No. Would you take 8-1 on the day if it absolutely belts down? Yeah, that's the difference. You might well do that. Similarly, Banbridge, you wouldn't take 8 now, but would you take 6, 11-2, 5 on the day if it's riding quick? These aren't horses I don't think you can back anti-post, but on the day they'll be really interesting.
At least sorry, man, go on.
So I was going to say there is one horse that makes a bit of appeal to me each way anti-post. Monty's Star for de Bromhead. Now, he ran really well, I thought, the other day. at Leopardstown. He didn't appear to me like he was absolutely concert pitch. He just didn't quite finish his race off. But you look at de Bromhead's stats so far this year. He's had 2 winners from 71 runners, I think it is.
He's struggling, isn't he?
Yeah, this is a trainer that operates, over a sustained period of time at around a 15% strike rate, and he's obviously way below that at this moment in time. But year in, year out, they have him at concert pitch for the Cheltenham Festival. I think he'll be a horse that will be better there than he was at Leopardstown with that stable form in mind. And he still put up a career best at Leopardstown. He went into it with a rating of 153. He's now got an official rating of 159 on the back of that. I think he deserves it. He's still only had 10 races in his career, 6 chase starts, and he's an improving horse. Now, traditionally, if you look at getting placed in a Gold Cup, you're going to have to run to low to mid 160s. That would be good enough to get you in the first 3 in a Gold Cup. Not win it. If Galopin's obviously on his game, you're going to need to run much higher than that. But I think Monty Star at Cheltenham will be ready to run to low to mid 160s. He's not as ground dependent as some of the other horses that we've talked about. He's won on very heavy ground, but he did run really well at Punchestown last year when it was drying ground as well. So I don't think he's dependent on a particular set of going conditions when it comes to the festival. He'll be a little bit more versatile than some of the others that we've talked about, and I do just think there still is a bit more upside in him.
Okay, interesting, Monty Star. If the Henry de Bromhead runners run at Cheltenham like they have done the last few years, he certainly comes into the equation. Let's quickly talk about the British Challenge, Matt. There's not much of one there, is there?
No, it's looking thin. I mean, Grey Dawn has been left in the race, hasn't he? Skelton took him out of the Ryanair, but interesting to see Grey Dawn left in it. Now, obviously, in the reports, the talk is potentially, well, he all but ruled it out anecdotally, saying that the Kelso's the target and then onto the Aintree Bowl. But if something were to happen to Galopin de Champ, I guess the option remains there. And you do take the favourite out and it becomes an open Gold Cup, and if it was a wet Gold Cup, then Grey Dawning would obviously be of considerable interest. L'Empresse is a horse I have a lot of time for. Now, obviously, he had a little bit of an excuse last year when he didn't get a great trip through the Gold Cup. He's been campaigned quite lightly throughout his career. You would imagine he's probably reached his peak at the age of 10, whereas we look at some of the others, such as Monty Star, who, incidentally, he's closely related to Monolly, isn't he? And he stayed, I think he was narrowly beaten in Album Photo's Gold Cup a few years ago, that Monolly, and Monty Star was actually, I think he was in the Ryanair and taken out, so they've obviously going all out for the Gold Cup. Someone thinks he's going to stay, because on the form book there's a question mark whether Monty Star has fully seen out the 3-mile trip and would want it. But back to L'Empresse, he has something about him, L'Empresse, doesn't he? He has that little bit of stardom that you do need to win these Grade 1s. I've no doubt that he could land on another Grade 1 before the end of the season. I think there's talk of potentially going to the Ascot Chase, though.
Yeah.
And
you only go there if it's soft, I'm told.
If it's soft, yeah. And I was underwhelmed by his victory in the Cotswold Chase. Not a race that's thrown up Gold Cup winners historically. He wasn't the best horse in the race at the weights, I don't think. But he's one of those horses that just does enough, doesn't he? You can't help but like him, but he has so much to find with Galopin de Champ, and I don't think he's on that upward trajectory that really makes him an each-way play either, to be perfectly honest.
Dave Massey, is there anything each way at a big price on the radar for you in this race?
I've just touched on L'Empresse. I was a little bit more taken with the Cotswold Chase, and I thought he got a lovely ride from Charlie Deutsch. He tittled him up the hill, didn't he? He sort of come on one crack after the last, one crack halfway up the running, and actually last 3-4 strides. Yeah, Stage Star's stamina's probably at his peak, but at his end, but he is coming away at the death, and I think he'll run his race, L'Empresse. I think he'll run his race, and he'll be thereabouts again. Place chances. The one that I quite like is the one that finished second at the weekend. I think Grange Clare West has been sort of overlooked a little bit here. Martin was making the point about looking for something that perhaps still not quite fully exposed and it's still going the right way. Well, I think Grange Clare West only had the 5 chase starts, and that was a career best at the weekend, and he was doing all of his best work on the run. And I don't think another couple of furlongs is going to do him any harm. Again, I'm going to keep referring back to the track time reports we were getting. A lovely old-fashioned chaser was how he was describing. That's my sort of horse, Ben. That's my sort of horse.
Of course it is.
Like a big old lump, So I think he's the one he's still going the right way. Yes, he probably needs another £3-4 to get in the frame, but he can find that if he's only had 5 chase starts. I think this will suit him. And we shouldn't forget, actually, he has got a beating of Corbett's Cross on the card, albeit a couple of years ago, in soft ground. So stamina is not going to be a problem with Grange Clare West. And I think they'll go here rather than go elsewhere. I know he's in the Ryanair, but everything about him on Sunday sort of said you should be going for a Gold Cup, and I think he's a nice backup for Willie to have for the race.
Okay, a few each way selections there, albeit Galloping de Champs looks very tough to beat in the Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup this year. But what a great race it is, chaps. You must have some super memories of the Gold Cup down the years. Martin, I bet you've been to a few, been on racing TV.
Yeah, I think I must have been to the last probably 20 now, to be honest. The one that really sticks in my mind was when Long Run won it in 2011, and there were so many reasons. It was just a fantastic race, and they were coming down the hill to the third last, and Richard Hoyle said in his commentary, Imperial Commander, Quarter Star and Denman, a who's who of Gold Cup history, and then there was Long Run lurking in the wings, and he came through to win it, jumped on at the second last. It was Nicky Henderson's first Gold Cup winner. Sam Worley-Cohen was the first amateur to win the race for about 30 years at the time. He did the King George Gold Cup double. I don't think that's been done since. That put him alongside, Best Mate, Quarter Star, Desert Orchid, etc. in managing to achieve that. And he was the first 6-year-old to win it for about nearly 50 years at the time as well. So I don't think he ever really went on from that. He was quite a precocious horse by jumping standards, wasn't he? Long Run, and he did win another King George later on, but I don't think he was ever quite as good as what he was then, and he probably did beat some tired old legs in Court and Denman when they were obviously past their best. But just the way that the race shaped up with those 3 previous Gold Cup winners going down the hill with a chance, and then the young gun coming to take them up the hill, I thought it was a fantastic race.
Yeah, that was a really special era, wasn't it? I remember Imperial Commander winning the year before in 2010, and that was a hell of a race as well. I know Quarter Star fell when he was odds on, didn't he, in that race? I was there for that one. That sticks out in my mind, and some fantastic staying chases. Now, Martin's been to the last 20, Dave. I think you can beat that.
Under or over?
There's no need for this.
No, every race since Arkle? No.
I even did the Absolute Tard year. In the COVID.
Oh, really?
Listen, I've been going for the last 12, I think now. I've been going for. I would, is this? Are we talking about memories, or are we in a massive after-time party here? Because if it's an after-time party,
no, we don't want to hear your after-time.
For me, Tony's going to be the one. Because on that there YouTube that you can find on the internet, there is a video of me out there somewhere in the days when I used to do bits and pieces for
free TikTok.
Free long TikTok was merely a glint in the milkman's eye at that point, man. But there's a video out there with me on Decoration Nation saying, watch for Tony Green next season. He's going to make a hell of a chaser. He's going to be one of my horses to follow. And I never at that point, I did not expect him at that point, because having only seen him win at Utoxeter, I think he was going to be winning the Gold Cup within sort of 18 months. But he was just a lovely, we just been talking about old-fashioned chasers. He was everything to me in a chaser that I look for. And these horses, to me, don't come around very often, these sort of, these wonderful old-fashioned jumpers that go from the front, heart on the sleeve type stuff, I mean, to me, it's a pity the Jukebox Man isn't appearing this year, because he's the nearest thing that, one of the nearest things I've seen in a few seasons, to be honest. So, but Koenigsegg for me, just watching him jump around. Was it the best Gold Cup we've ever seen? Beat Jack and Andel? It probably wasn't. But, from a personal perspective, I loved just watching him ping every fence and then find a bit more of the running when he was under pressure.
What price were you on at, Dave? What price were you on at?
There we go.
Come on.
Okay, so this is a massive return party then, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah. You threw it out there.
I got it. I got a 33 about it.
Did you? None of the 66. What are you playing at?
No, 66. 66. What's wrong with you, man? Yeah. Do you know what the funny thing is about Tony Green? Do you know the first race he won the season after at Sandown was an intermediate chase because he was still eligible to run an intermediate chase the season after, which was the weirdest thing. And that was the last race he ever won. Never won another race after that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great horse. Matt, you must have some fond Gold Cup memories, Matt.
Scrambling back through the Value Bet records, don't they? Did you tip many Gold Cup winners? Not a great race for the old column.
Amazing John, maybe, but
I've not really come close to that. Certainly not the 50-1 winner as a novice. I remember I used to put a bet on for my sister-in-law because it's around her sort of birthday time, and I do, because we're sort of both Lake District here, we had a bit of Lord Windermere at a price. But in terms of sort of like the original, like watching the Gold Cup, I think I've actually been there once, so I'm trying to recall like which pubs I've been stood in watching it or which offices I've been working from. But I do remember. I'm going to sound a bit simple here, but obviously Best Mate back in early 2002, so I'd have been about 17 or 18, and it's standing in the Strawberry Pub on Abbey Road in Barrow-in-Furness. It was a simple time, Scoop, simple time, but the memories, God, they don't have to stick with you. I think it was that kind of like that whole Henrietta Knight and Terry Biddicombe story. It was very captivating, wasn't it? And what happened over the next sort of few seasons with Best Mate, that really does stick with you when you're growing up as an impressionable young racing fan. But another one that really stands out was Denman. This is when he beat Cotto Star 2008.
That's a brilliant one.
This is one where I can't remember what was going on. I was supposed to be buying a new wing mirror from a scrapyard near very close to where I lived at the time. And instead, with the 50 notes in my hand, I went to the Coral and I backed Denman, and it was one of those moments where you sort of feel it was a risky time as a young lad trying to replace a wing mirror that I'd smashed off whilst driving a bit erratically. But yeah, no, that was a good day. I mean, I'd have been in a lot of trouble, I'd imagine, if that result had gone the other way. But the Metro got a nice wing mirror, and there was a bit to spare at the end. So yeah. that was one that sticks in the mind. What a race that was!
Wing mirrors in the end.
To know, Matt, that you were even back then, road safety came second to being a degenerate.
It did, yeah. We'll say the word degenerate with love.
We're all on here for a reason,
Indeed. It was a lovely risk to take at the time.
Plenty of Cheltenham Gold Cup memories. A great race, and it's going to be a great spectacle this year with Galloping Deschamps bidding to make history and becoming, is it the 5th horse to win 3 Gold Cups or more in Gold Miller's case?
I think he's the best Willie's ever had as well. I know I'm going off point here, but you go through.
I've got an off-point quiz after you've finished that point, Martin. Go on.
No, it's just you go through it with the whole package in mind. You think of the horses, the incredible horses he's had over the years and the success he's had. But this horse is, with the consistency that he's shown it for. Yeah. If he does go and win his 3rd Gold Cup, you're looking at him in the quarter star sort of ilk, can't you? Really, that type of horse. I mean, he's 11 Grade 1 wins at the moment. Quarter got to 16. But he's only a 9-year-old. Corto's last one was as an 11-year-old, so he's got plenty of time yet to be catching up, and it doesn't look as if his enthusiasm or ability is waning.
He could just do with a rival. Sorry, Matt. I was just going to say he could just do with a rival, couldn't he? To maybe push him to even better.
Well, he's had a few, but they just can't get near him.
Well, exactly. But he's not going to get those sort of Corto Star numbers without one, is he? In terms of time form rating, etc.
Probably not, no.
The slight snag I've got with him is that can a truly great horse like him, can a truly great horse ever be sent off at 100-1? He was 100-1 in his third maiden start in his qualifying run.
The Martin Pipe.
And a question, I should have put it out at the start of the show for listeners to chip in as well, but Massey might know the answer. But when was the last Gold Cup winner? Who was the last Gold Cup winner to have ever returned an SP of 100-1 in their career?
Koenigri. No.
It wasn't. It was SP of 100-1 in their career.
Not fine.
Well, I mean, he won the Gold Cup at 100-1, but
you're going to tell me since then there has been a horse with the Gold Cup.
There has been one more. Obviously not in the Gold Cup, but earlier in their career they went off 100-1. I just thought it was something to think about as we finish off.
My
guess would have been Koenigri just because of the stable he was with, but it probably wrong.
Yeah, he was never. He was.
He was a big fat I remember.
Okay, it was only a couple of years after Norton's Coin. It was Cool Ground who went off 100-1 as a novice in his earlier days. There you go.
I would not have got that.
Nothing.
That bit of trivia. Absolutely. Okay, that is the goal.
Obviously, Galopan only went off 100-1 that day because they were getting him handicapped for Cheltenham. So.
Well, I didn't want to say that, mate.
And it worked. So you ran away with the Martin Pipe.
Yeah, when you beat Langer Dan in a Cheltenham handicap, you know he was pretty well handicapped.
Yeah. Just the 4-stone Welling, I think, something like that. Anyway, that is the Cheltenham Gold Cup done and dusted. We're going to finish the podcast with a couple of sections, regular sections these will become over the next 4 or 5 weeks. The first one is On the Radar, so we've got plenty to go at, having just had the Dublin Racing Festival, but it doesn't have to be from there, but I just want your horses that have come into your thinking, maybe from left field, for Cheltenham in the last week or 2 weeks, seeing as this is the first podcast. Any from the track insight from the likes of you, Martin, or Dave, from what you've seen over the last few weeks as well, in terms of horses getting fit and ready for Cheltenham. This is the section for you. So I'm going to come to you first, Dave, because you look like you've got one.
Do I? Oh, right, okay. No, I am. This, as I say, it wasn't me there at the day at the weekend. I had the delights of the Sandown card to go and have a look at on Saturday. I was taken with handstands, by the way. He's, just as an aside, I don't necessarily think he's a Cheltenham winner in waiting, but he is growing with every time I see him. He makes more appeal physically, and it was good to see him do what he did on Saturday and take care of Django Bay again on worse terms than he met him last year. So I think he's a horse for Aintree. But anyway, that's down the line. So it was Vicky that was at the DRF for trackside. Il Atlantique was one that she thought was quite interesting as one that would make more appeal if stepped up in trip next time. He would just basically run off his feet early by Madgeborough, and his jumping came under pressure. But what she felt, he looked really well beforehand. She feels that a step up in trip, but Il Atlantique will bring about. His jumping will improve again because of it, and the steadier pace will help get his jumping solid again. And he's quite an interesting one, I think, for Cheltenham.
If there's only a 2.5 mile Grade 1 for novices at the festival, Dave, that'd be perfect, wouldn't it?
If only. But he sort of, he still shaped like the step up in trip was definitely going to suit. Yeah, if only.
Okay. Martin, what's come on your radar recently?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeouts for me from the DRF, there's the obvious ones, the novices from the Mullins Yard, obviously catapulting themselves to strong favourites, etc. But for me, we can headline this triumph for the Brits. They didn't have any winners at the DRF. They hardly had any runners. But I do think that after watching the Spring Juvenile Hurdle, I cannot see anything troubling the British horses that dominate the market at the moment for the Triumph Hurdle. I just don't think the Irish juveniles are going to be good enough this year. They bet that way anyway. I mean, I'm pretty strong on his East India Dock. I've said a few times, I think he should be clear favourite for the race. I think he might end up being anyway, but I just don't think that the Spring Juvenile would be strong enough to trouble East India Dock, and maybe Lalamba, we'll see, when it comes to Cheltenham. In behind, we've also got the Fred Winter. I thought Willie de Cooley ran a nice race with the Fred Winter in mind. He's probably going to get a mark mid to high 130s. But a very strong travelling horse, too keen really. And I just think the nature of a Fred Winter will suit him much, much better than the conditions races that he's been in so far.
Okay, Willie very much on the radar.
Can I just add to that, Ben? I just thought, I would agree with that, Martin. I thought he stuck to it a bit better at the weekend than he has been doing. So I think it was a step forward. Yeah, I'd agree.
And the pace was slow, wasn't it? And it was too slow for him. He was pulling the whole way around, but he's obviously not gone on as they expected him to. They were hoping at the start of the season he would be the Mullins Triumph horse potentially, but it doesn't look like he is. But that Boodles Fred Winter is a race that has evaded Willie Mullins so far at the Cheltenham Festival. Not many races have, but he's never won it. But he could well do, I think, this year. He certainly have a strong contender in that horse, I think.
Okay, we'll get him on the list. Matt, anything made a step forward for you in recent weeks?
Not a lot from the DRF. Carapon, he's a double green horse who now qualifies for the Martin Pipe or the County Hurdle or the Coral Cup. He finished 7th behind. He was in the Cup at the board race. Never really a factor, but I know that Darryl Jacob, before he retired, he was quite sweet on him kind of making up into a nice horse. He was very lightly raced. I think he only might have run once as a juvenile hurdler last season, but he's won a race earlier this season and he's now got himself handicapped. So Carafon is one to add. And then there was just a couple of news lines that I kind of read recently in the last 10 days or so that piqued my interest. One is Richard Hobson talking about Fugitive. I think he might be potentially running this weekend, so look out for the entries this weekend. He's referred to the festival plate being the big target for Fugitive. Now, he's a 10-year-old now, and we know it's tough for handicappers of that sort of age in these Cheltenham handicaps, but he's already down to a mark of 148, and he won last year's December Gold Cup off 151, so there's a bit of room there. If he ran again in the Denman Chase this weekend and maybe come down another pound or two, he's got to be interesting going back to the festival where he has a good record over those intermediate distances at Cheltenham. And then the other one, there was a snippet out of Paul Nicholls' yard where he said Ginny's Destiny would now be stepped up in trip. Now, I know that Cheltenham might not be completely sort of on Nicholls' mind for a lot of his horses at the moment, but I think Ginny's Destiny for an Ultima handicap chase is surely the way they want to be going with him. Things haven't gone right for him yet this season, but that kind of, when you're writing value bet and you're looking for these horses, that's precisely the sort of horse you're looking for. You know he's got the class. He chased home Grey Dawn in last year, and he's already come down £6 to 149. I think that's a mark that he can be competitive off. Nicholls is fantastic with those horses that just dip below 150 into handicaps. And you look back earlier this season, he was sent off 3-1 for the Paddy Power Gold Cup. That was running off 155. And I wouldn't dream of recommending a bet without the non-runner no bet concession on Cheltenham handicap. Look, we don't know what's running, we don't know the ground, we don't know the makeup of the field at all, but he is 33-1 non-runner no bet, Ginny's Destiny, which I thought he's crying out for 3 miles plus. So I thought that could be worth a few shillings each way if you're willing to sort of stump up and potentially risk him not running in the Ultima.
Okay, so that's the perfect on the radar horse. We're nearly finished, but we're going to finish with From the Pot. Exciting segment this. Matt says it's the most exciting segment he's heard in a racing podcast for a long while. And basically we've got 20 mythical points to spend between now and the final show in about 4 or 5 weeks' time.
Do we all have to agree here? Is this what we're...
We don't have to agree. If Dave Massey says, Scoop or Martin, you cannot have that horse, it cannot win, then we won't put it up.
I have this conversation every morning with Delargy. I don't want it with you two as well, you three as well. I can't have this again.
So that's the premise anyway. Has anyone got anything this week? I mean, it's the first week, so I'm not expecting you all to put your hands up and say, I've got one. But I don't want to get to the 5th week and it's Dave Massey, 10 points each way on the Coral Cup. I don't want to get there.
I think can I just say, you sent out an email yesterday, we need to have these points before Dave has 18 points on the Fox Hunters. I think that's very unfair. If there are any points left, in the pot the week before Cheltenham. Let's say, for argument's sake, we've got 12 points. They will not be going on the Fox hunt, as you know that full well. They'll be going each way on the cross country on something trained by Martin Keithley. So I think that's very, very unfair to single me out.
That was fair enough. Okay. Well, has anyone got anything this week that they're prepared to put podcast points on at this stage?
Well, I'm listening to Matt's case for Ginny's Destiny. I mean, I must admit, he doesn't look the same horse as last season to me, but he's 33. It sounded like he should be probably put up, doesn't it, for even half a point each way?
Matt, what do you think?
Wait, he's on the radar. That? Can we cross over sections?
We can definitely cross over. We can definitely cross over.
On the radar.
Well, we could wait until next week and bring him back as a possibility. I think that Willie de Hooley could potentially be very interesting for the Fred Winter.
So what price is he, Martin?
He's 8 to 1 at the minute. I mean, I don't know what price, but it's probably where I suspect it's going to be where he'll run. His Mullins, you could just see he could easily go off half the price he is now, couldn't he?
If you think he could be a 4-1 shot on the day, I think that's you from the pot horse.
Well, go 1 point win on him unless anyone's got a massive disagreement with it. You can't be backing him each way. But
can't go against him. The thing with just back to Ginny's Destiny is obviously we've got like the stable tours and stuff coming up, and as soon as it gets mentioned, I think from Nichols, then's the time to sort of have a look at that, because if you know it is the target, and I don't think the price is going to collapse or anything at all when they're betting in these Cheltenham handicaps. So no mad rush with Ginny's Destinies yet, but I wouldn't be against Willie de Hooley. Is that what we're calling it?
Okay, let's have 1 point win on Willie de Hooley. Then I'm making records of these, so we'll go through them all in 5 weeks' time and see how we're doing.
We're going to have to get a bit bolder when it comes the next few weeks if we're only doing 1 point this week.
That's fine, Martin. We've got 19 to play with. It's absolutely fine.
Do you want me to throw one in at the moment, or am I just banned until the week before and then I've got to put a fox on to select?
Dave, I would never ever ban you from putting up a Cheltenham selection, having spoken to you over the years about the festival.
I will tell you, I've only had about 3 anti-post bets so far this year, and they're all my anti-post bets at the moment tend to be on the max, and by that I mean I'm backing something each way at a big price where I think only 4, 5, 6 runners will turn up on the day, and it's now would appear to be a good time to say I have had a little bit each way on JPR1 for the champion chase, because I think this year I've seen him both times. I saw him at Exeter, I saw him at Salmon. He looks a better horse this season. It's a bigger, more robust horse this season. And I think that is a race where John was just going to scare him off. But JPR1, he barely gets a yard past 2 mile. You know, he was coming to the end of his tether at Exeter over 2-1. I just think at 66, if he runs well this weekend in the Game Spirit, then I think his price will contract a little bit. But whether he's the sort of horse you want to be putting up on this section, I do not know.
Well, I'll break some news to you, Dave. The 66 to 1 is no longer there. You've got a best of 50s.
It's Conegry all over again.
Mad dash to the book. Mad dash.
What are you saying then? Half a point each way?
Listen, it's a mass bet. It's a mass bet, and he's got to run. We are relying on him running a reasonable race at the weekend. And I think he might, because the shape of that race will set up for him. Matata will make sure that they don't hang around, and that will suit him. So he could run well at the weekend. Yeah.
The reality is that those sorts of bets are the very best anti-purse bets, aren't they?
You're having the bet at the match. You're having the bet at the match. Yeah, not because you particularly. I mean, I love the horse. I have always loved the horse, but I thought, we were making the point about the Gold Cup, and it's going to cut up to. You might end up with 6 runners, 7 runners on the day, so you might as well back something now.
Let's have him in. Let's have him in as well, Scoot, each way before he runs at the weekend. Yeah.
JPR1 at 50s, half a point each way. So we're already down to 18, but this is really good. This is what we wanted.
It's a race that throws up shocks as well. Captain Guinness won a champion chase, for goodness sake, and dodging bullets out.
And I think this Game Spirit, this Newbury card, Tizard kind of works towards it. He won it with Eldorado Allen, and he's had some good winners on this card over the years. So hopefully things go well this weekend.
Well, I know Dave Massey wouldn't do 2 after times in one podcast, but the punting pointers lads put up Captain Guinness last year, didn't you, Dave? Anti-post.
Again, really at the time on the mats. Again, similar sort of thing. Look for something that's going to run in the race. Look for something that's got some course and distance form, and he made plenty of appeal. So yeah,
headline of the pod. You can't beat the maths.
There we go. JPR1, each way in the champion chase. Willie de Hooley in the Fred Winter. A couple of from the pot selections. Thanks for that, gents. Look forward to that section again next week. That's it for episode 1 of Festival of Focus. Enjoyed talking about the Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup and all those other sections too. We'll be back next week when the focus is on the champion hurdle.